Start my truck, let's all jump in. Here we go together. Nice cool breeze and big palm trees. I tell you, life don't get no better. Talking about hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now.
Oh my goodness, we're so thrilled you decided to join us for the very first episode of Talk the Talk, which just happens to be South Africa's first digital motoring talk show pioneered by women. You're now officially in the loop to hear all about Women Talk's online motoring magazine's content and all our exciting projects which lies ahead for the months and years to come. We have an exhilarating first show planned for you. Today we feature the Mazda MX-5 in our first segment called Let's Talk Car of the Week with Nita Stadler, my co-pilot motoring journal. Then we have our motoring tips specialist, Ashley Roos, joining us for the informative Let's Talk tips. And then our third and final segment, Talk of the Town, will be, as usual, an inspiring, exciting conversation with the one and only, the first of many in motoring South Africa, Masha Mayaba.
Talking about hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now. I go, ane. Chucking more fina, anane. Chucking more fina.
Nita, you have been ranting and raving since you've reviewed the MX-5. Why so? Maybe tell us a bit more about this Japanese artwork.
Certainly, Dee. In the April of 2016, over 1 million MX units were sold worldwide, and it has since been raged about. That's because it hits the sweet spot. It's a vehicle with a spirited drive and an attractive price tag.
Nita, what makes it so special to you?
Well, Dee, it's a vehicle for someone looking for something different from the norm, but who want a vehicle that won't be difficult to drive or won't cost a fortune for some free-spirited fun. And it's a clean-cut vehicle that will offer you genuine motoring excitement behind the wheel.
Oh, Nita, it really is a beautiful looking car. Tell us some more.
Okay, well, it's a Targa-styled roadster, which basically means it's definitely going to stand out on the road with its iconic form and modern cuts. The retractable hardtop offers versatility in the form of a zippy roadster as well as a lavish cruiser. But what I absolutely love are those skinny LED headlights. They're enhanced with automatic on-off, an adaptive front lighting system, daytime running, while the distinguishing taillights frame the MX-5 with individuality.
I know your obsession with looks, Nita, but please tell us more about what's inside.
Okay. Well, it's leather interior, which is nicely laid out, and considering its size, it's obvious that it would be a tight fit inside with its tiny consoles and a 127-litre boot. But guess what, viewers? In a mere 13 seconds, the top folds. Now that's pretty cool for an impatient girl like myself.
Nita, let's talk a little bit about the features, maybe?
Okay, so viewers, there's a 7-inch MZD Connect infotainment system, which is equipped with satellite navigation, Bluetooth connectivity, and a 9-speaker Bose sound system. The MX-5 is also fitted with powered windows, a rear parking sensor, climate control, cruise control, smart advanced keyless entry, and push-to-start functionality for convenience and comfort behind the wheel. It has all the safety bells and whistles, like airbags and ABS and such, but what's more is that it has a bucket load of driver's assisting features, such as dynamic stability control and blind spot monitoring. Desh, I like the fact that it's enhanced with whiplash minimalizing front seats and side impact door beams.
Yep, especially for drivers like yourself, Nita. Ladies and gents, it's a 2-liter Sky Active G, 118 kilowatts of power and 200 Newton meters of torque. It has a fuel consumption of 6.7 liters per 100 kilometers, which is rather impressive when considering it's still a roadster and has notable outputs such as its ability to reach 100 kilometers an hour in only 8.6 seconds. I must say, strangely, it's an auto which usually would hinder performance, but Mazda has done right because it is now more accessible and more driver friendly. I honestly think the Japanese have put their focus more on handling and fun-filled driving than red hot speed, which means it still houses a considerable amount of haste, but it's more financially accessible. For me, the suspension is more on the stiff side, but still manageable to operate on normal driving conditions, which means that minor road imperfections will easily be absorbed. So that was our MX5 review for us, and we thank you, Nita, for joining us.
Thank you, Dee, for having me. I really think that was the perfect choice for our first car talk segment.
Next, we have Ashley Roos with our talk tip of the week. Now, viewers, this lady has written more than 500,000 words regarding road safety and vehicle-related topics during the past year. In my motoring opinion, there's no other woman that has more knowledge on road-related tips, hacks, and tricks than our very own Ashley Roos.
Wind up, go down, wind up, go down. Twist your body backward. We go left, left, we go right, right. Turn it around and forward.
Hi, Ashley. So what are you bringing to our table today?
Thanks, Dee. Yes, viewers, today I will be discussing some warning signs that your vehicle may need a service. So firstly, I would like to mention that every driver should stick to your manufacturer's guidelines regarding your vehicle services. They will usually put a set amount of kilometers or a certain time period, usually once a year, in place for the owner of the vehicle to follow. So the most noticeable sign every driver should look out for is any warning sign in the instrument cluster. This is your vehicle's primary way of communicating with the driver regarding any mechanical problems with the vehicle. Then also, if you hear any unusual noises from your vehicle as you drive that wasn't there before. For example, whining from your engine, an excessively loud exhaust, and grinding when you change gears.
So Ash, is there any way that our viewers can predict what these warning signs mean regarding mechanical problems with their vehicles?
Desh, it really depends on the specific warning sign your vehicle is experiencing. The best thing to do is to consult a trustworthy and qualified mechanic. There are some obvious signs. For example, if a check engine warning light appears in your instrument cluster, it means that there is trouble with your engine. And if you hear any grinding noise when you change gears, there's problem with your gearbox.
Are there some warning signs more severe than others?
Yes, some certainly are more severe than others. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and that is definitely the case if you notice any smoke escaping your vehicle's bonnet. White smoke means that your engine is overheated and can easily be treated by water to cool it down. Blue smoke, on the other hand, means that oil is burning and you need to stop your vehicle immediately and have it towed away. That's how serious it is.
Ash, is there any advice you could give to our audience?
Definitely, Desh. They should always pay attention to their vehicles and all the small nitty-gritties. A small problem ignored now could lead to disastrous results at a later stage.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you, Dee.
Coming up next, my most favorite part of the show. Let's welcome our talk of the town. Masha Mayaba has been in the industry since 1997. She started as a trainee at Barlow World Truck Hire and went on to become the first black female operations manager at the same company. Masha always says that she has had to work 3 times harder than her male counterparts to get ahead in the industry. But for me, what really stands out about Masha is that she highlights these crucial conversations in motoring South Africa and has these robust debates to create awareness. I thank Masha for not only being an inspiration to me, but being a supporter, my very own cheerleader, but also being my very first guest on this unique motoring show. Let's welcome Masha, our talk of the town, proudly brought to you by Sariti Solutions.
My bestie and your bestie sit down by the fire. Your bestie says she want parties, so can we make these flames go higher? Talking about hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now. I go, ane.
Welcome, Masha, and thank you so much for sacrificing your personal time to be here with us. Actually, I sometimes wonder if you even have the luxury of personal time. But anyway, Masha, please can you tell our viewers where and how did a career in motoring all begin for you?
Well, thank you, Dash. Hello to you, and happy Women's Month.
Thank you.
And before we even start, I think in terms of my story, I would like to congratulate you for your bravery and your courage to have been able to start Women Talk. Literally, I think it was a year ago, right?
2 years ago.
No, 2 years.
Yes.
Really? Wow. I still remember when you walked into my office and it was a month that you had started.
Yeah.
And look at what you've done for us as women in the motor industry. So thank you for that.
It's my pleasure.
So, okay, where did it start? I often tell people, especially during Women's Month, that I never chose the motor industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the motor industry chose me. So it began in 1997. Can you believe it? 23 years later.
Wow.
And yeah, I found myself by default. My mom had passed away through breast cancer, and I was doing my second year BA law, and no experience. I mean, literally, I think the only experience I had was data capturing at Edgar's during school holidays, or the corner cafe shop where I was a cashier. So literally no experience. And I knocked on Barlow World Truck Rental's door, which is now called Avis Truck Rental. And the ladies, Sharon and Corinne Cooper, literally I call it was a pity appointment, because I had these two younger siblings to look after my mom died. And then they asked me if I could type. And I said to them, yeah, well, I happen to have that skill. And then started off as a trainee. And then the rest is history. But that's how it began for me, Desh.
Wow. She has so many incredible stories to tell. I mean, 20 minutes is just not enough. So I certainly think that Masha will be joining us. She'll be my frequent visitor. Guest.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
You are not, well, most certainly, you are most certainly an against all odds type of woman, right? I know you've had some challenges, but please give us some insight into your humble beginnings and perhaps how it contributed to some of this continued success and achievements of which you managed to accomplish. Firstly, before you go on, if you could just talk about what you're currently doing.
Okay, so I am currently the franchise executive for Barlow World Motor Retail, representing the Ford and Mazda brands. And I'm also literally recently appointed as vice chairperson for the National Automobile Dealers Association.
Wow.
A first time in the country and a first for women. And then yes, I always say many first black female moments, but such an honor and a privilege to have been appointed into that role. You're far too kind and against all odds type of woman, sure. And success, and thank you. You know, you humbled me when you use those words. So I think, you know, with my mom passing away at the age of 21, and or leaving me at the age of 21 and raising my two younger sisters, who were not even in their teenage years when Mama passed away, that to have survived that, and it's 25 years later, and it's still sort of, you know, it's a tear-jerking moment. It's almost as if it happened yesterday. So that to have survived that and continue to survive it, it was a heavy blow for me, and I know it was a heavy blow for my sisters. And then and then coming into the motor industry, literally a black young female in a very white male dominated industry, That posed so many challenges on its own, Desh. And the only thing that I think helped me is that I realized that I needed the job more than the job needed me. So I literally threw myself into my work and creating those relationships, understanding my positioning as well, knowing that I was on the back foot. So I found myself having to work 3 times harder to gain their trust and to gain their respect. And my hard work is what brought me credibility and integrity in this white male-dominated industry. And that is exactly how I have continued in the journey, because I realized that it's not easy as a woman just to come into, I mean, even now, I go to meetings and I'm the only female in the room. And I still remember, literally recently, somebody asked me if I was there to take the minutes. And then somebody said, no, she's actually the franchise executive for Polo World. Just like, oh, okay. So yes, and then Desh, you know, when you talk about challenges, the journey for me in my career, I'd never like to use the word successful, because I just decided right in the beginning that I was not going to be a backbencher. When I started, I looked for the women. I looked at the top, I looked at the sides, I looked at the bottom. We were just not there. So we didn't have women who we could look up to in leadership roles and say, can you mentor me? We had to figure this thing out ourselves. So I realized that I'm going to be a necessary disruptor here. You cannot be in an industry like ours as a woman and take a back seat and not stand for anything.
Absolutely.
So I decided very much earlier on that I was going to take this thing head on, and I was going to be bold and very brave, so that the future becomes easy.
I actually liked, what you said in my last year's awards, that I have decided that I am a necessary evil.
I call it disruptor.
That's what you said in that interview. I am a necessary evil.
Yes, that is required. No, it's true. It's true. And I appreciate women like yourselves, because you literally took us, Desh. I'll never forget this. Literally within a year, you were able to fill a room with more than 100 women in the motor industry. And you brought us all together. That was a first. So that on its own, people like yourself and the work that you do just raises our profile and presence. And we've come a long way since Women Talk started. And then, you know, there's a story that I like sharing when we talk about challenges. And because it's such a human story. You know, in all of this, there's been success, there's been achievements, but there's also been pain and failure. Yeah. And I remember I was on the right trajectory and doing very well, but I didn't realize that because I was working so hard, Desh, trying to prove a point that I can do this, and literally neglected my family, threw myself in my work, and that's all I did. But unfortunately, that took a toll on my health, physically, mentally, emotionally. And in 2014, I actually had a nervous breakdown, and I didn't even see it coming. I got into my car and drove to work, and I just started crying, and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. Eventually, HR came through, and before I knew it, I was then put into a facility, and I was diagnosed with total burnout, depression, anxiety, and stress. So, to cut a very long story short, I never went back to work. I took an 18-month sabbatical. It was just too much. Then in 2016, I decided to come back. Now, the irony of it all is, then I started knocking on the same doors that said, Masha, you're so awesome, you're so successful. Yeah. And they said, no, sorry, we're not bringing you back as a dealer principal. You got to start from the bottom. I promise you. They said, sell some cars. Like, guys, remember? I'm the one you
I'm
said,
Masha.
I'm Marcia. I said, no, sorry, you've been out of the system for 18 months. You probably lost touch with the industry. Sell some cars or maybe a sales management role. And I was fortunate enough, Barlow World gave me a dealer principal opportunity in 2016. And in hindsight, and I always share this story because it's not just roses.
Yeah.
And any woman who comes into the motor industry, I'm sure can attest to the challenges. But in hindsight, that nervous breakdown was probably the best thing that could have happened. I learned so much about myself.
Yeah.
I learned to appreciate myself.
Yes.
And I came out of that a different person.
Love it.
I said to myself, Masha, you've got nothing to prove.
Yes. Yes.
Do you?
You know, it's something that all women go through.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have to, as women, we have so many different contributing or negative contributing factors. We've got our hormones and we've got everything else that plays inside and we've got the stresses of being mummies and the stresses of being homemakers and the stresses of actually trying to make it in corporate or in the workspace as well.
Yeah.
And that's bound to happen.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us, but the important thing is how we actually handle it.
Yes.
And yours is a success story for me.
Thank you.
Because it's an inspiration, because now you are sharing with all our viewers, thousands of viewers that's
Yes.
probably going to watch this, not only in the motoring industry, but to know that there's proof right here. You go through it and you get out of it and immediately you feel empowered and you just move on.
And I came back stronger, eh?
There we go.
I
There
came
we
back
go.
stronger. I came back wiser.
Well,
I call it
well
Masha
done.
Mayaba the return.
Yeah,
Hey,
love it.
Masha Mayaba the
The
return.
return, absolutely.
I'm telling you.
So, Masha,
Yes.
a common goal of yours and mine
Yeah.
is what brought us together in the first place, and that is to educate and empower women in understanding and making the motoring industry a natural choice for women of South Africa. You know, we actually fell into this role of whatever it is that we're doing
Yes.
as a journalist. I was in investigative, but motoring chose me,
Yeah.
and motoring chose you because you were in law. So how can, please offer us like a perception into this, and how can young women actually, or can they actually make motoring their choice? Should they?
I think, Dash, you've hit the nail on the head. That the one thing that with my new appointment as vice chair of NADA is to work very hard at repositioning the motor industry. You know, it's never been a glorious industry. It's never been able to attract women because it's always been seen as a man's world, very ruggedy. And also the motor industry is not very well trusted by customers. So the perception of it is not sexy at all. But we need to reposition it. And just before lockdown, I had a radio interview and I actually referred to the MEC of Gauteng Department of Education, Mr. Panyaza Lissufi. After that interview, they actually reached out to me. And my view is that we've got to go in at school level. The minute these women start having to identify career choices, you know, they always focus on finance, law, medicine, engineering, mining, you know. But in 23 years, I've never met a single person, child growing up saying, I want to work in the motor industry. They know they want to buy a car, but they'll never want to work in the motor industry. And there's so much opportunity, Dash. So if we start there, I think already we create an awareness.
Yes.
And we invite these young people into our dealerships because you can actually have a very rewarding career. I mean, there's so many elements. It's not just a dealership in terms of retail. You've got the manufacturers. You've got the component side of things. There's so many elements in terms of the value chain of the motor industry. And another thing that people don't know, the motor industry contributes about 6 to 7% of the GDP in the country.
Yeah.
So just the employment levels and the opportunity that we can create for women, it's massive.
Yeah.
So sincerely, I sincerely hope that I think my tenure at NADA is 2 years, and this landscape will look slightly differently. So yeah, I think that's where we need to start.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
And the insight into this because I don't, and while you are aware, I do these workshops now on a national level. Vivian attended one of my workshops. We did a video as well. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember.
And we had students, we invited matriculants to join us so that we could. So that's something we can look into as well. It would fit in perfectly with your vision. So Masha, you are such an inspiration.
Thank you.
A trailblazer, a trendsetter, and I am so blessed and fortunate to have you in my midst. I think about this all the time. Like you said, you did not have someone to look up to when you started, or to mentor you, or to guide you. And I felt sitting next to you at the country auto, a woman in autos, we sat right next to each other.
You're right.
On the panel.
That was 2 years ago.
Exactly, and that's where we met. And
Wow.
Jeff Osborne brought us together, and he's a
Yes.
wonderful guy that loves to see this. So maybe, at the end of the day, we really, really, we found also with our network that I've created that we are all empowering women together. We need, if you're sitting in a position of power, then use that power to empower.
Yes.
And that's the important thing. So Masha, what makes you tick? Being that inspiration and being that trailblazer, who is Masha Mayaba?
Dash, you just mentioned that Gumtree Auto. Yes, that's exactly where we met.
Yeah.
Dash, being the first, it's always great, but it's also extremely lonely.
Yeah.
And I can never ever just bask in the glory of being the first. For me, the journey of Masha Mayaba is no longer about Masha Mayaba.
Yeah.
It's about the future Masha Mayabas.
Yeah.
And their journey must be different to ours, Desh. I call myself the fertilizer, and the future leaders will be green grass,
Right.
And they'll have their own challenges to deal with. What makes me tick? This makes me tick.
Aw.
This makes me tick. Sitting next to a woman who is also fearless, who pushes the status quo and says we are going to have crucial conversations. This makes me tick. What makes me tick? Watching these young women coming into our industry. And Desh, I make time. I make time, and I'm so proud of the fact that I've been blessed to lead right now. What a time to lead.
Yeah.
So I give them my time. I mentor them. I coach them. I'm very hard on them because I can be very strict. Because it's important that they are actually groomed. And I often say, I will never ever take you on the wrong path.
Absolutely.
I will always give you sound advice based on my experience. And if I don't know, I'm not going to tell you a story of something that I don't know.
Absolutely.
So that's what makes me tick. And winning. I often say to people, I don't build individuals, I build teams. And in those teams, when we win together. But the individual potential comes out of there. And then there's career advancement.
Absolutely.
That's what makes me tick.
Absolutely.
And then finally, what makes me tick? My 8-year-old son. My 8-year-old son makes me tick. He is such an awesome young man. And he makes me happy. Litabo makes me happy. And yes, that's what makes me tick.
Okay, so I would just leave out, and I guess he's the fun part of your life.
I
as well.
love him. The fun, but yes, I entertain a lot. In fact, my wife and I entertain a lot. And in fact, my wife is in the motor industry.
I
as
know.
well. Oh, okay.
I know, I met her.
So for fun,
I thought she was your sister.
you thought she was my sister?
Yes, and I'm actually having Vivian on the show as well.
Okay,
in the
all
next
right.
coming weeks. So I'm actually very excited.
Awesome.
I think she's stunning. She's awesome, and she definitely. I've got a question to ask her. Like really have a question because. Really, to be married to you, I don't know how she keeps up. Anyway, we'll get there.
No problem.
We'll talk about
that's
that
what
when
we do for fun. We entertain.
That's
we go
awesome.
to restaurants. Love to have people in our home.
Okay.
And yeah, that's as much fun as it gets.
Okay. And now for a special little car sales quiz, compliments of Woman Talk. As you know, Masha,
Yes.
we have thousands of cars getting sold from our website on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So let's see if you, being part of NADA and all, let's see if you can guess between the options which one of the brands received more sales.
Okay.
So Kia or Hyundai in the last week?
Okay, which brand?
Kia or Hyundai?
Hyundai.
Okay. You're wrong. It was
Was it
Kia.
Kia?
Last week it was Kia, yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So
Yeah.
Ford or Mazda or Nissan, one of the three?
I work for Ford I work for Ford and Mazda, so I'm gonna say Ford.
It is Ford.
Yay!
So our ladies are definitely buying Fords off our
Thank
side.
you.
Okay, so is it Suzuki or Haval? What is-
Suzuki.
It is Suzuki.
Yes.
Okay, and then from Jeep and Land Rover,
Land Rover.
it was actually Jeep.
Oh, okay.
So our ladies.
Why didn't you give me the answers before this? Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Mercedes or BMW?
Mercedes.
It was BMW last
okay.
week.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Jag or Alpha?
Jag.
Alpha.
Come on, man.
And then Audi or Volvo or Lexus?
So this one is a sentimental answer because my wife was the first black female dealer principal for Lexus. So I'm gonna say Lexus.
Actually, no. Most of our ladies on our site goes for Audi in the last week.
Really?
Yeah, it's 73 weeks.
But
in
like
a
I
row.
said to you, that's a sentimental answer.
And it's great because my husband's favorite car, his dream car, is a Lexus.
Is a Lexus.
Okay, and then Mitsubishi or Mazda? I'm sorry, or Mahindra?
Mahindra.
Just because I'm Indian. No, it wasn't Mahindra.
Okay.
It was Mitsubishi.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Toyota or VW?
VW.
Actually, it was Toyota last week.
I give up. I give up.
One more.
I hope
Opel-
you're going to edit this whole section out.
Opel or Renault?
Renault.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Yay!
Look, I know you know your brands.
Yes.
Okay, so Bala will be proud.
Thank you.
But it's just a fun quiz.
Thank you.
This is new.
Yes.
So it changes every week. So
Sure.
thank you for participating.
Thank you. Thank
and
you,
partaking
Desh.
in that. And thank you
you.
so much for coming, Masha.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and that brings us to the conclusion of episode number 1.
Yay!
Episode number 1, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching, supporting, and loving us. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and ladies that are watching, please remember the question should never be who's going to let me. It must always be who's going to stop me.
Wow. Wow.
Start my truck, let's all jump in. Here we go together. Nice cool breeze and big palm trees. I tell you, life don't get no better. Talking about hey now.